Welcome to episode 336 of Angela Watson's Truth for Teachers. I'm your host, Angela Watson, and I'm here to speak encouragement into the hearts of educators and get you informed and energized for the week ahead. Today, I'm sharing simple classroom routines to help students build metacognitive skills and think about their thinking. Visit truthforteachers.com for an easy-to-read, easy-to-share version of this podcast episode. Today's episode is brought to you by ListenWise, a provider of short, high-quality, age-appropriate podcasts for grades 2 to 12. You can save time with pre-made lessons designed to build students' background knowledge and academic vocabulary, or keep students on grade level with scaffolding and differentiation. Use ListenWise's ELD lesson library for WIDA and state ELD standards-aligned podcasts and video lessons that are built for English learners, from emergent to reclassification. ListenWise gives you comprehension tools like quizzes, interactive transcripts, graphic organizers, and a text-to-speech toolbar with translations in over 15 languages. Start a free trial today at listenwise.com. That's listenwise.com. Today, I want to talk about something that doesn't usually get its own place in the pacing guide, but quietly influences almost everything our students do in the classroom. And that is metacognition, the ability to think about your thinking. Now, that can sound a little abstract, especially if you teach at the elementary level, but it's not too early to start, and it's not too late either. Whether you are teaching K2, upper elementary, middle, or even high school, you can embed small daily routines that help students pause, reflect, and choose how to respond to challenges. In this episode, I'm going to share 4 simple classroom routines that you can introduce to build metacognitive habits. I'll give you concrete examples from my Finding Flow Solutions curriculum, which is a K-12 product line that helps students understand how their brains learn so they can manage their own time, energy, and focused attention. Let's start with how to help kids understand what we mean by metacognition and how it can help them. Metacognition is really about 2 things. It's about awareness and adjustment. Awareness means noticing what's happening in your mind and body, like I'm feeling distracted right now, or I don't understand this yet, or my brain feels tired. Adjustment means taking action in response to that awareness. Like, I'm going to move to a quieter spot so I can focus. Or I'm going to try a different strategy for this math problem. Or I'm going to take a short break and then come back. When students can do both, when they can notice and adjust, they become more self-directed. They need less micromanaging from us because they've learned to monitor themselves. Of course, children don't come in knowing how to do this, and even older students might never have been explicitly taught it. So here's an introduction to how you can talk about these things with your students. In my K2 curriculum, I make these concepts concrete by introducing 4 brain helpers. So the first one is the wise owl, who represents the prefrontal cortex. Your wise owl helps with smart choices and problem solving. The guard dog represents the amygdala. It warns you when you feel scared or upset or distracted. The librarian elephant represents the hippocampus. It stores your memories and your facts. And your acrobat squirrel represents the cerebellum. It helps with movement, balance, and energy. So for a 6-year-old, saying, my guard dog is barking, or asking a 6-year-old, you seem upset right now. Is your guard dog barking? That could be a little more accessible to them than having them say, I'm feeling emotionally reactive and it's affecting my focus. So the metaphor gives them distance and a shared language and a different way to think about it. For older students, I don't use the animals, but rather simplified neuroscience terms or a metaphor that fits their age group. But the principle is the same. You're giving them language and a structure to identify what's going on so they can take the next step. So for younger kids, it's the brain helper team, the wise owl, the guard dog, the librarian elephant, and the acrobat squirrel, to give them a concrete way to talk about what's happening in their brain. For older students, you can take that same idea of noticing your brain at work and introduce them to the concept of being both the watcher and the director of their thoughts. So beginning at the middle school level in my Finding Flow curriculum, I introduced the term metacognition and this idea of being the watcher of your thoughts. Later on, we work on being the director of your thoughts. So we're telling students, metacognition is like having a conversation with yourself about your own thinking processes. You're not just doing things, you're thinking about how you do them. And you can use this analogy. Your mind is like a movie theater. The movie playing is made up of your thoughts. It's scenes from today, it's memories from the past, it's worries about the future. And when you're the watcher, you are in the audience, in the movie theater. You're just observing what's happening on the screen. You might notice, wow, my mind is really focused on this one thing, or I'm jumping between lots of different thoughts right now. You're simply watching. When you're the director, you step into the control room. You can say cut on a negative scene. You can choose what comes next. You can rewrite the script so that your mental movie takes a more positive or productive turn. And this is a really powerful shift for older students because it's about self-awareness and self-agency. You don't have to just be a passive observer of your thoughts, although that's a really good skill too. As you grow in your ability to recognize what's happening, you can then do the adjustment piece, and you can choose to direct your thoughts in a way that serves you better. So you can use that animal brain helper team metaphor. You can use this idea of the watcher and the director of your thoughts metaphor, whatever you think is going to work for your students. I just wanted to make sure that we're all clear about what metacognition is and some developmentally appropriate ways to explain it to students. Now let's get into these 4 quick routines that you can use to help kids build their metacognitive skills. The first routine is an attention check. It's a quick 30-second pause where we all check in on our focus. So you can teach students to think of their focused attention like a flashlight. There's many different objects in a room, but wherever you shine the flashlight is where that light is focused. And many times, our flashlight of attention feels like it's swinging all over the place. It's going from the task at hand to our phones, to the noise in the hallway, to the person next to us who's talking, and so on. So it's more like swing lights on a concert stage than it is like a flashlight. And learning to focus your attention is like learning to control the direction of the flashlight. It's choosing which things to illuminate, to light up, to bring attention to, and which things to leave in the darkness. Directing your attention in this way requires control, and that requires practice. The more you practice shining the flashlight of your attention in one spot and holding the flashlight there, the easier it becomes to do it again. So we can introduce this imagery to students and teach specific strategies for what to do when they're trying to focus their attention and the mind wanders. So the 3-step approach that I teach is this. 1, notice that it's happening. Noticing is a good thing because sometimes we're not even aware that our thoughts have wandered. Secondly, observe, but don't judge. Critical thoughts might pass through your mind, but don't focus on those. There's nothing wrong with you if you're getting distracted. And third, bring your thoughts back to the thing you want to focus on. And you can repeat this process as many times as necessary. Notice that your mind has wandered, just observe, and bring your thoughts back to the thing you want to focus on. So for the quick check-in routine, you can ask, where is your flashlight of attention pointing right now? For little learners, you can ask, is your wise owl holding the flashlight steady? Or is your guard dog pulling it somewhere else? The kids can physically point their pretend flashlights, maybe at their book, at the ceiling, at their friend sitting next to them to show what they're focused on. For older kids, you can strip away the animal metaphors and just say, where is your mental spotlight right now? Is it on the task or is it somewhere else? And follow up with, if it's somewhere else, what's one thing you can do to bring your attention back? And the key here is that it's not about catching them being off task or doing something wrong. It's about noticing. Even if they're distracted, noticing is step 1 toward regaining focus. And over time, students begin doing these checks without you prompting them to do so. That's the goal. They don't just drift away for 15 minutes before realizing they were totally zoned out. They can catch themselves and choose to come back. The second routine is brain break signals. This is about helping students connect their physical state to their ability to focus. Because focus isn't just a mental skill. It's deeply tied to what's happening in the body. When our bodies are restless or stiff or drained of energy, our ability to concentrate plummets. And most students don't consciously notice when that's happening. So they just try to push through, even though their brain would work much better with a quick physical reset. And that's where the brain break signals come in. So for elementary students, you can make it a playful thing by tying it into that acrobat squirrel, that cerebellum in their brain who's in charge of movement and balance and coordination. So you can say, check in with your acrobat. Is it ready to sit and focus, or does it need a quick wiggle? If lots of kids signal they need a break, take 20 or 30 seconds to stretch, hop in place, do chair twists, or even a quick pretend to be your favorite animal challenge. The goal is to get blood flowing, wake up the brain before we dive into the next task. For older students, you can drop the animal metaphor and call it an energy check. Thumbs up if you're feeling alert, sideways if you're kind of fading, and thumbs down if you are drained and cannot focus on anything else. If you see a lot of sideways or down thumbs, take a reset moment. Stand, stretch, refill water bottles, or do a 30-second breathing exercise. Now, I've mentioned before that I like allowing students to choose when to take breaks and what kind of break. I talked about this in episode 314. It's called How to Use Movement to Increase Work Quality, Focus, and Creativity. So if you want to hear more about this process, check out episode 314. But I want to emphasize that the reason that I like to have students choose when to take breaks and the type of break is because if you as the teacher are determining when the break is needed, and you're telling students what to do during their break, then we're skipping the metacognitive practice. It's not a bad thing. It's absolutely fine to do. But if you want them to be practicing metacognition, it's good for them to self-select. Ultimately, we want students to self-monitor, not to depend on an adult to tell them when to work and when to stop working. So as students get used to the brain break signal routine, you can build in self-selected micro breaks so that all students don't have to stop at the same time and do the same thing. So here's how to make that work. You want to make sure that you teach each type of break explicitly. Practice them together so students know what they look and sound like. You may want to have a brain break menu. So this is a chart on the wall and it has a couple of options. For example, you might list movement breaks, jumping jacks, wall push-ups, marching in place, 20-second dance party, whatever is appropriate for your classroom. You can list these things out. Stretch breaks could be an overhead reach, side bends, shoulder rolls, neck stretches. You could offer breathing breaks, such as smell the flower, blow the candle. That's a breathing technique for young learners, K2. Box breathing is a good one for older grades. You could offer sensory breaks, such as squeezing a stress ball, tracing a shape on your desk, or using a fidget. And micro-social breaks, where you can turn to a neighbor and share the most interesting thing you learned today in one sentence, or just have a little bit of time to talk. Again, we're talking about 30 seconds or so. So you want to make sure that students know what kinds of breaks are available to them and when they are appropriate. And you can do that by teaching and practicing it and have it posted. So you might even have two posters where you could have one where these are the quiet brain breaks that you want students doing when others are concentrating, and then save some of the movement things when students are doing more self-directed things, maybe when they're working in stations or something like that, and it wouldn't be disruptive. So you can decide which brain breaks are available so that, things don't get too crazy. But you want to make sure kids know what their choices are. You might even want to teach them to use a quiet signal. So a hand raise or 2 fingers up, something like that, that means I'm taking a micro break. And that way they don't have to interrupt the class. They're just signaling to you what they're doing. In many classes, the students don't need to do this, but if you're a person who just wants to know what's going on with students and you want that extra communication, the signal can help. And be sure to teach them parameters. So the micro break should be no more than, say, 30 seconds or 60 seconds. It could include the parameter of staying in your area unless you're getting water. Choose a break that doesn't distract others or something like that. And gradually release responsibility. So at first, you might lead the breaks for everyone and everyone does the same break at the same time. And as the routines stick, you can let students self-monitor. They can choose their own break. So you can say, okay, we're going to take a break now and here are your choices, and have them use the brain break chart. And then lead up to the idea of them choosing when to take a break. So that would be the gradual release. At first, we all do the same break type at the same time. Then we can choose different break types all done at the same time. And then you can take total charge of deciding when you need a break and what kind. So when this works well, you might have one student standing to stretch while another is quietly taking a deep breath and the rest keep working. So no one's off task, they're just managing their brain states. So you could use language like this to introduce the idea. In our classroom, we know that our brains work best when our bodies are ready to focus. And sometimes our acrobat squirrel or our energy level needs a quick reset. That's what brain breaks are for. Brain break is not playtime or free-for-all. It's a short, intentional activity to help you get your focus and energy back so you can return to doing your best work. Here's how we'll agree to use brain breaks in this class. You're going to choose the right break for you. Keep it short, no more than 30 seconds. Stay in your space unless you're getting water. Be respectful. Choose a break that won't distract others and come right back to learning. The goal is to feel more focused than before. And you can even use call-in responses to seal the agreement. Why do we take brain breaks? To help our brains focus. Because we really want kids to internalize that there is a purpose for this. So we talked about attention checks. We talked about brain break signals. A third classroom routine that can help build metacognition skills is mistake moments. The idea here is simple. When something goes wrong, we pause. Not to dwell on the mistake or to beat ourselves up about it, but to name what our brains can learn from it. And that pause is powerful. It gives students a moment to shift from an emotional reaction like frustration or embarrassment or wanting to give up and shift into curiosity and problem solving. At the elementary level, you can connect this directly to the Brain Helper team. Like, what can our wise owl learn from this? Or how will our librarian elephant file this away for next time? You might role play how the wise owl pauses and thinks about what went wrong and then tries again. Or how the librarian elephant carefully files the memory of what didn't work so we can make a better choice later. The key here is making mistakes feel normal and even a little bit fun to talk about. You can share favorite mistakes at the end of the day, a moment where we learned something unexpected because we tried and it didn't work the first time. For secondary students, you can go straight into the reflection questions like, what was your plan? Where did it break down? And what will you try differently next time? For example, you started your science lab with one hypothesis and it didn't turn out as expected. What happened? Where was the gap? What could you change if you ran the experiment again? Or you misread part of that word problem on the test. What can you do next time to make sure you catch that? Now, I'm guessing you're already doing this naturally with your students. You're having them reflect back on what went wrong and how to fix it. The shift here is in using it to start building a metacognitive loop. Notice, analyze, adjust. Notice, analyze, adjust. We want students to cycle through that loop naturally, to notice things went off track, to analyze why, and adjust accordingly. We don't want them waiting for an adult to point out the mistake and ask questions or provide direction. We want this metacognitive practice to be ingrained. And over time, you'll hear students' self-talk shift. When they get in the habit of having a mistake moment, that pause, they begin to see mistakes as data rather than as personal failures. Instead of thinking, I'm bad at this, they start thinking, I learned this strategy doesn't work well for me, I'll try another. A student who used to crumple up a paper in frustration might learn to say, I'm going to redo this part and see if I can make it better. And that's the payoff. So in order to make this a true metacognitive routine in your classroom, model it yourself. Share when you've made a mistake in teaching and how you're adjusting. I really can't overemphasize how powerful this is. That when you are, let's say, doing a math calculation in front of the class and you make a mistake and a student points it out, model what just happened. Just say, oh, right, this isn't adding up. I can tell this doesn't make sense. I'm going to recheck my work. Oh, here I see. I was adding up the ones column and I said 5 plus 3 was 9 instead of 5 plus 3 is 8. Okay, so I can go back and check my work and fix it. So you can model the self-talk out loud so kids hear what that sounds like. And because they're with you so frequently, especially with younger students who are with you all day long, you're going to be making mistakes all day long. Don't just brush over it and keep going. That's one of the most powerful parts of your lesson, is when you catch yourself making a mistake and you talk through it. So modeling it yourself will help. Keeping it short can help. If you notice this example that I just gave, that took me like 15 seconds, right? A mistake moment does not need to be a lengthy period of time, really no more than 30 seconds. Try to normalize it daily. The more often you have these mistake moments where you pause, the less students see mistakes as a big deal. It's just a regular thing that we do. We make mistakes daily and we analyze them daily. And of course, make it safe. Avoid sarcasm or a tone that can make students feel ashamed of their errors. So at the kindergarten level, you might model this kind of self-talk for students by saying, we forgot to line up quietly. What can we try next time so that it works better? And kind of think through the process with them. In 5th grade, you might say, our first attempt at the group presentation went way over time. How can we adjust so that we stay under the 3-minute limit? And then analyze and brainstorm together. At the high school level, the self-talk you model might be, we lost points on the project for missing a requirement. How can we make sure that we catch that before turning it in next time? That is the mistake moments routine. So the 4th and final routine is the end of class brain check. But instead of a generic exit ticket or what did you learn today, I want you to think of this as a metacognition wrap-up, where students reflect not just on what they learned, but how they learned it, what helped them, and how they might approach things differently next time. So we're not testing recall. We are building ongoing awareness of what the mental tools and strategies they used look like, so that they can start choosing those tools on purpose in the future. For young learners, I link it directly to that brain helper team. The prompts change daily so it stays fresh, but they always circle back to who helped your brain most today. So what's one thing that your wise owl learned today? Or when did your guard dog help you feel safe or calm down? When did your acrobat squirrel give you energy to keep going? What will your librarian elephant remember for tomorrow? You might rotate through one brain helper per day, or let students pick the helper that was most active for them. If you have time for more sharing, ask a few students to explain why they chose that helper. The why is where the metacognitive reflection lives. For older kids, still keep it focused on process over content. Like, what's one strategy that helped you learn something today? When did you lose focus and how did you get it back? What will you try differently next time that you do something similar? You can also add more advanced metacognitive prompts, like, what was one obstacle you overcame today? How did your emotions affect your focus? What did you learn about yourself as a learner? What elevates this from a routine check to a real metacognitive habit is consistency and intentionality. So here's a few ways to make it stick. You can build it into your closure. Do it at the same time each day so it becomes automatic. You can make it multimodal. Maybe it's oral sometimes written, sometimes a partner share. You can use a visible tracker. So keep a class chart of brain helpers in action or strategies we used so that patterns emerge over time. Or try connecting it to tomorrow. End by asking, how can we use what we noticed today to make tomorrow's learning even better? So this end of class routine closes the loop on all the other ones we talked about today. The attention check tells us where our focus is now. The brain break signals keep our bodies aligned with our focus. The mistake moments help us adjust when things don't work. And the end of class brain check makes us step back and notice the whole picture so we can carry those insights forward. When you use these consistently, you're not just managing the learning process for your students, you're teaching them to manage it for themselves. Now, if you found it a little tough to follow all of this in audio form, totally understand the article that goes along with this post is linked to in the show notes. And you can easily see it there. You can email it to yourself, whatever you want to do so that you have a list of it, of these different strategies and routines. And if you want a ready-made way to introduce these ideas to your students, that's what my Finding Flow Solutions curriculum is for. It's grades K to 12 now. Yes, I have all the grade levels done. I'm so excited. This has been a 2.5-year endeavor, and it is now completely done. And all of the units give you everything you need to teach these skills so that you don't have to figure out how to explain it to kids. There are no prep editable slideshows that walk you and your students step by step through the lesson. The activities, the different prompts, the ways that they're going to practice it, definitions, and so on. There's student journals that have prompts to help kids reflect on their own learning and apply it. And there's a teacher's guide that has the key ideas and suggested language so that you can feel confident guiding the conversations. We cover topics like how to focus and get into the flow zone, how to train your brain to bounce back after mistakes, how to use movement to sharpen concentration, and how to build self-awareness about your own thinking. And the best part is there are free downloadable sample lessons for every grade level. So you can download the free lessons for K2. There's a free unit for grades 3-5, one for 6-8, and one for 9-12. That way you can try it out with your students before you purchase anything or before you get a purchase order from your school to cover it. So I'll link that in the show notes so that you can grab the free sample lessons. Your takeaway truth for the week ahead is this. Metacognition isn't something that we teach once. It's a way of learning that students carry into every subject, every grade level, every stage of life. When you build simple, consistent routines for noticing and adjusting thinking, you're giving students the tools to take charge of their own learning. Have a great week. You can do this. And remember, it's not going to be easy. It's going to be worth it.